Jeff, coming back to the bench, I know it's what you want. I know you've been working at this thing for a long time here. What was the conversation with Steve like, and when he ultimately told you, or what was the conversation like when it was signed, sealed, delivered that you were coming back? What was your emotion like?
I'll start with the conversation. I thought Steve and I, after the season, as he discussed, had a good conversation over a couple of days and talked about a lot of things. And I think I think that communication is critical between a coach and a general manager. And I think being on the same page is critical. And I've enjoyed that part of it with Steve. I think I gained through those conversations. You just continue to gain greater understanding of each other's direction and thoughts, and I think that's a positive. And ultimately, Brad, I've been a Red Wing for a long time now. Been in this seat for a good amount of time, and I love being a Red Wing. I love being part of this organization, and probably more importantly, though, I want to continue to see this organization, to see this team get to a better tomorrow. And we've been through tough times over the last number of years, and to get a chance to continue to lead this team I'm very grateful for and very excited.
From the outside, a lot of us are under the impression that Steve kind of keeps a lot of you guys on your toes, kind of keeps people in the dark, but then he just tells us how much he talks to you, not just after every game, but keeps you, you guys are in lockstep in so much of how all of this goes down. Did you feel like you were in the dark about your future going forward, or did you have a pretty good idea that you would be back and it was more about just planning those next steps?
Honestly, through most part of the season, that's not really the way that I look at it. And in this business, contract, no contract, you never know when your last day is going to be with this particular team. That's the reality of this business. So, I've learned not to spend really any time worrying about that. I'm at peace on a continual basis with whatever happens. We don't control that. We control doing our jobs and doing the best of our ability. And so, we, as Steve said, we weren't going to discuss my situation through the season. I don't necessarily think in most cases that's right. Maybe in some cases it is, but I think in most cases it's not right. So, but to be clear, there's very little time that I feel like I'm in the dark at all about what Steve's thinking. That's why I enjoy working with him and for him is I know on a regular basis what he's thinking, and I think vice versa, he knows what I'm thinking. And I don't think you can get to the best, get to the top, do your very best job if you're not completely honest with each other and find ways to come to solutions. And that's our approach.
Good to talk with you today, Jeff. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad.
Next up, Ted Colfin, Detroit News.
Hey, Jeff, you kind of alluded to it. Is there a sense of the job's just not complete yet? The job's not done in your eyes?
Well, certainly the job's not nearly complete. And, I'm aware of where we have been the last number of years, and I want to get us back to a much better spot. And so I think any coach would tell you that you'd love to continue to have the opportunity to grind and push and find ways to continue to make strides as a team and as an organization. And I'm very aware of what I've been a part of. I've been a part of a rebuild, and certainly knew with my eyes wide open that there was going to be tough days and there's going to be struggles. And my job is to try to push us and help our players become the very best they can be, and help push this team to a better spot. And certainly that job's far from over, and we've got tons of work to do. I think we made some strides this year. I think we got better in certain areas. I think individual players got better. That's extremely important, but we've got tons of work to do.
Hey, what's one area that you're going to concentrate on? I mean, going forward, where would you want to see you guys improve next season?
I think there's too much to say just one. I don't think there's any doubt that the hardest way to win in this league is, and I don't think anybody really does it, is to just score and try to outscore your mistakes on a nightly basis. Like, that really doesn't happen. It's not really a run and gun league. Everybody's too close. Nobody has that much more talent than the other team. to be able to run a gun. You guys are watching the playoffs. It's hard. It's hard to create scoring chances. If, a great team like Vegas isn't able to score through 60 plus minutes of hockey. Like, that's what it's like. So we better be sound defensively. And I think the reality is good offense comes from being sound defensively. So we better make sure we're sound defensively, but we need to improve in tons of areas.
Sounds good. Thanks for this, Jeff.
Next up, Lee St. James, Shirley Press.
Jeff, coaching is such a fragile position. They're often the first guys who get their fingers pointed at them. What does it mean to you now to be entering your 7th season as head coach of this franchise?
Well, I think it's, as I've said lots, I have perspective, and I think you should, and I've talked to our players about this. I mean, you should generally, on a day-to-day basis, really take stock in the opportunities you have ahead of you. And so, to have had the opportunity to coach this team for 6 years and now go into my 7th year, I take that very seriously, and I'm very grateful for that. And listen, I understand what comes with coaching. I understand that the finger gets pointed at coaches a lot, and that's okay. That's fine. It's not, one thing I think you learn in coaching is to have very, very thick skin and it's to have social media. And it took me a while to learn the first part, or the second part, I should say. And I've grown through lots of trials and tribulations in my life, grown to have thick skin. So, I think that's part of it, and I think that's great. And that part's never really bothered me.
And just one more thing, how has your relationship with Steve evolved since, he took over a little more than 2 years ago now, in April of 2019?
How is it growing?
How has it evolved? Yes.
Yeah, how's it evolved? I would say, excuse me. I would say that, like any relationship, it grows over time, and I think we've had opportunities to have a lot of discussion. We've had opportunities to know what each other's about, both from a how to play hockey, how to how each other looks at hockey, to what we're about as people. And I think it's really grown because of that. And I think we've had open, honest conversations with each other. And I think when you do that, you give your best chance to grow in terms of that relationship, and it certainly has done that.
And just to be clear, your new policy is going to be complete transparency with injuries, right? That's your priority?
Negative.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Next up, Max Bolton, The Athletic.
Hey, Jeff, I just wanted to ask you, with the vacancy, Dan leaves, what does the search, I guess, look like to find an assistant coach? What do you prioritize? Do you go out and ask people, who should I hire? How do you kind of identify candidates and stuff like that?
Well, first up, I think Steve mentioned this. When him and I've talked about this, as I said to him, like, I want his help. I think it's important that we use all our resources. And what resources? What does that mean? Probably contacts. He's got a wealth of contacts that are outside my contacts, and let's use our contacts. Let's do our due diligence to see what people might be the best fit, who's interested in the job. And I think ultimately you narrow it down and you try to find the very best fit. And I think, part of coaching is fit. It's a huge part of coaching. And there's a number of really, really good coaches out there. And what we want to do is try to find the best fit. And so we'll go through a process. It's not going to be anything quick. There's nobody there that is that we're ready to hire, and on their side, that people have to decide if this position is the right one for them. So it'll be a process we'll go through.
And then when you talk about fit, I mean, I don't want to ask you describe your ideal candidate, but what are some kind of big items on that someone you would look for would check in order to be a fit, I guess?
I think probably an area, certainly how that coach looks at the power play. The power play is an area that needs to be better, and that's not certainly on any one particular coach or any one particular person. The guys that are on the ice have to do a better job, and we got to do as good a job as possible preparing them and giving them a plan that works. So, different offensive ideas. I would use probably the word tactician, especially in a guy with an offensive kind of mindset. Somebody that brings some different, potentially unique ideas. It's hard to come up with things that are real different or unique in the game. Not necessarily how you win, but ultimately, is there some fresh ideas or unique ideas or different thought process? But from an offensive standpoint, is something that we'd be looking at.
And then you mentioned watching the playoffs. I'm just curious, when you watch a game at this time of year, I assume the way you watch it is maybe a little different than you would as a fan. What do you look for when you're watching playoffs right now?
It's a little tricky, honestly, during this round, because you end up watching too many games on a night, and you don't get maybe the same feel as if you just sat down and watched one game start to finish. But right now, this is a different year than other years. As a coaching staff, we'll each grab a series and kind of break those series down, and that doesn't necessarily just when you watch at night, but we have opportunity to go back and watch these games on tape and really break the series down and just see what we see, and not necessarily going into it and say, okay, I want to see this. What trends are we seeing? Anything from, how teams are playing, how they're using their players, the decisions coaches are making in critical situations when they pull in goalies, just to see and see if it's anything that gets our brains thinking as we go into the summer and we start to plan for next season. And the other thing that's different for this season for sure is we didn't play teams outside of our division. So it's and certainly we've watched some of those teams, but now you really get a chance to see some of these series and how they stack up against each other. And so it's been enjoyable so far.
And then last thing from me, not asking you to put a timeline on it, although if you want to, you feel free. How far away do you guys think you are from playing at this time of year?
I certainly wouldn't put a timeline on it because it's such an unknown that at the end of the day, we'll need growth in our players. We'll need growth we'll need to add players who can help us be better. Some of those are going to be certainly internally. You never know how good some of those young players are going to be and how quickly they're going to be to that level. You just don't know those things. So, I believe ultimately in taking strides every day to try to get forward, trying to take footsteps in the right direction. And you put your head down and you just go to work, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question from Ansar Khan and live.
Hey, Jeff. In terms of just improving the offense, how much can that be done internally with the pieces that you already have, just with better health and continued growth, or how much of it is just needing help from the outside?
I think you touched on part of it for certain is growth in health, and certainly some of the guys that would be or have been higher offensive output guys for us were out for significant amount of time this year, and that's a hard thing in this league. But I also think obviously we're introducing and have introduced a number of young players over the last couple of years, and we'll continue to do that. And the growth of those players can be big depending on the steps they take. And so, it's probably going to take a little bit of everything. And, we don't need to necessarily, you don't need to lead the league in goals for in order to be a really good team. If you play smart hockey and you play the right way, you have to score enough. And I think, we were in a number of games this year. We won a lot of those close games. We didn't win some of those close games. You just got to slowly but surely turn those close games into wins. And certainly the growth of the players that have been here will be important, and any additions that add to scoring without sacrificing the other side will be important as well.
And also with the Dylan, just how what do you look for him in terms of getting back to where he was a couple of years ago, production-wise? I know he battled a couple of injuries this year, but just how would you assess this season and what he needs to do going forward?
Well, I'd start by saying I think Steve touched on this. He had lots of chances sometimes go in, and that's the reality. Steve Eisman sat here and said it. It's reality of players in this league. Some years the production's up and you can play the same, and some years the production's down. And honestly, you played exactly the same. It's just some years you get on a roll. It's just the way it goes sometimes. That's why ultimately, I think the biggest key for Dylan is to be as great a two-way player as humanly possible. To be what I call those are winning players. To be as great a winning hockey player as humanly possible. Because then when the production's down, you're still making a huge impact on a team, helping that team win. And ultimately, Dylan as the leader of this team. If your best players are those great two-way winners, it starts to build towards being a winning hockey team. And Dylan knows that. And he's worked extremely hard at it over the 6 years we've been together. His work ethic, his compete are second to none. I've seen him be able to go against the very best players in this league, very, very best players, the stars of this league, and beat them on a game-to-game basis. And not every single game, but on a game-to-game, when I've given him those assignments, he's done that. And to do that and score is not easy. And so, I think like any player, production can ebb and flow through a course of a player's career. Let's focus on the things that we can really control, and that's his night-to-night play. And ultimately, my focus with Dylan has never been on a particular amount of points. My focus with Dylan has always been on becoming the best two-way player he can become.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Next up, Carly Johnston, Finley Steve.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good, Carly. You?
Good. Thank you. So obviously this is a team in a rebuild state, a team that could be getting younger and younger. So how much are you prioritizing the development of these young players?
I've had the opportunity to work in college and junior hockey in the American League level and the NHL now. And at every level, I've said the same thing. I think development of your players is critical to your team's success. And honestly, it really, it's not, it's still the case no matter how many veteran players you have, no matter how old your team is, or if you have a young team. Now, certainly when you're young, it can be exponentially important. Ultimately, the ceiling of your team sits at a certain spot, and then the better your players develop and the more they get better, it pushes that ceiling higher and higher. And so I think development is always a critical part of winning. To me, it's not either or. It never has been. And, one of the things I tell our players all the time is, as a coaching staff, we owe it to you. Again, it doesn't matter if you're a 21-year-old rookie in the league or a 37-year-old veteran in this league. We owe it to you to help you become, to continue to grow as a player and push your ceiling as high as possible. And ultimately, if we do that, our team grows.
For sure. Kind of on that note, what did you see out of Joe Veleno and the small sample size we saw of him in the National Hockey League?
Well, he's a player who's developed. He's gotten better. There's zero doubt about that. First off, I think, he's gotten better off the ice with the strength that he put on. He was clearly a stronger person. He was more of a man than when he first came in, and that's natural, but he went to work. Some guys go to work and build their bodies up to that elite level, and some people don't, and he's worked towards that. So he's clearly a better player. Seemed to have his confidence was high. It was good. I think that's extremely important in players. I think his 2 experiences in pro hockey have been very beneficial to him. Having played in the American League, I thought Ben Simon's staff did a really good job with him. I think Sean Horkoff and the development staff have done a really good job with him, pushing him to get better at certain things, going back to when he was playing junior. And I think this year in Sweden helped him. So he's taking steps in the right direction. Now, the steps get harder and harder as you try to continue to move up the pyramid of hockey. And so, my message to him is the next steps get more critical, and they're not easy. And so I hope he has another great summer and comes in here and is a much better player than when he left.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Next up, Art Reagan, TrueEvidence.com.
Hi there, Jeff. Congratulations. I am kind of curious. I know Steve didn't want to get into specifics about length or anything, but was this a relatively quick negotiation? Have you been talking about it through the course of the season, or did you get an unexpected call on Mother's Day and Steve said, "Let's make a deal"?
Again, I don't want to get into too much of the detail of it, but I said earlier, it's not something that I was really honestly thinking about through the course of the season. I have a job to do through the course of the season, and I owe it to our team to keep my focus on everything possible to help our team become as good as possible. So, Steve and I sat down after the season, and we talked over a couple of days, and ultimately we stand here today.
If you could explain, everyone's so eager to see the prospects all the time. The 12 players or whatever the Red Wings are going to draft in at the end of July here. The fan base is going to want to see all 12 of them in the lineup next year. I mean, that's just human nature. But how imperative is it to have the right blend of prospects and youngsters and veteran presence in the lineup? Not only because you want to be competitive, but for the development of these prospects, you need a mix of veterans, don't you? And is there a certain number that you would like to see on your 24-man roster of like 6 really hardcore proven NHLers?
I'd start with this. I'd start by saying, we're no different than the fans. We'd like every one of our draft picks to end up being an NHL superstar. But the reality is, if you go through history of the draft, and I do this all the time, and you go to any team's draft at any point, first of all, there are very few superstars in this league. It's the very best league in the world, and to get to that level is very few are able to attain it. Second of all, a lot of players you draft don't end up, and this is every organization. A good number of players you draft don't end up playing in that organization, don't end up playing in the NHL. I talk to elite level teams, whether it's the National Team Development Program, whether it's United States Hockey League teams, and in my message, I give them the numbers, and numbers aren't great. Numbers say that most guys that get drafted don't make it. And so, we have to be realistic about that too. The other part of it is, how many young players compared to how many veterans. It really, it starts with how good are the players. Like, you have to make the team, and you have to help the team be better. And I think from a management perspective, it doesn't it's not necessarily the most beneficial thing for the player on a team and not be in important roles. So they have to earn certain roles. And if they earn those roles, and I think management's generally comfortable with them playing in the NHL, but if they're not earning those roles, and they could be learning, playing in a much bigger role at a lower level, then that's probably the most prudent thing to do. What I would say, Art, without a shadow of doubt, at this level, really at any level, I think having good, I'll use the word models, having good models for young players to see, not just hear, but to see the approach you have to take every day, to see how hard you have to practice, to see how hard you have to go in the gym. When you don't feel like going to the gym because the season becomes the biggest grind they'll ever go through. I think those veteran presence players are extremely important. I think having, I kind of use the verbiage Papa Bears, players who have been through a lot of experiences, who can put their arm around young players and help them through, are critical. And honestly, they're more important than coaches. They're critical pieces to the development of young players. And I said this, I think, towards the end of the year. I talked about the veterans that I had when I went to Grand Rapids, and we had 4 guys in Jeff Hogan and Nathan Page and Brennan Evans and Tristan Grant, who we had signed and we had more than that. Francis Perry. We had a number of veterans that I thought did an unbelievable job of helping the young players. And who were those guys? Tatars and Nyquist and Glenn Dennings and Mrazeks, and helping those young players along the way and being great Papa Bears. And I felt that was a huge turning point for the Grand Rapids Griffins becoming a great developmental team and helping then continue on for the Manthas and the Thennessees and the Bertuzzi's and the guys that have went through it. So I think having veteran presence is a critical piece to the development of young players.
Mo Sider was named the best defenseman in the SHL this year. When was the last time you actually saw him play live, Jeff? Has it been over a year?
Live, yeah.
How eager are you to see him in training camp and to see the improvements that he obviously must have made? Because, you know, being the best defenseman in the SHL is quite an honor.
Well, it's a great honor. It's a great honor. It's a good league. You know, I thought Mo did a really good job in the American League a year ago. I think coming into camp, you're always excited to see the growth of a number of players, and whether it be guys, like I said, that have been around or young players. And so, you know, for when that time comes, when camp starts, and I don't want to take everyone's summer away from them, but when camp starts, it's always exciting to see where guys are at and see the development that they've shown. So, you know, I have watched Mo. I will watch Mo even more through the course of the summer, and you know, and have a bit of a feel. But until the NHL is the NHL, and he's going to face challenges here that he didn't face in the American League, that he didn't face in Sweden, and how he responds to those challenges will dictate how quickly he'll have success here. And so, you know, we'll have to all wait and see.
Jeff, one final question from me, and I asked Steve this question, and I want to ask you, was there a pleasant surprise on ice this year that maybe something you didn't foresee when the season began, and now that you've had a little over a week to look back on it, that you said, wow, I'm pretty glad that came together. I really didn't see that happen.
I don't know if there's one thing. I can't necessarily put a finger on one thing. I thought, you know, our guys did a good job of sticking with it when, you know, after we came out of that COVID and we had those issues, and we won, you know, I don't know how many games we lost in that stretch. And I just was really pleased with the way our guys responded then. And I was really pleased with the way our guys continue to respond. You know, I think, again, if there was an area where I would say there was a good area of growth, I think there was good foundation laid for the type of hockey you have to play to be successful. And I thought there was good foundation laid for that. Now we got to build on that starting next year.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Again, congratulations. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Art.
Next up, Carlos Monteris, Turkey Press. Carlos, you're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Steve wouldn't tell us how long your contract is, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, we don't know. So the question is, do you feel that you feel confident that you're not only the coach for the Red Wings this next year and the next couple of years of this rebuild, but the guy to take them to playoff success when it starts coming and take them into playoff runs deeply?
Well, I'd start by saying, Carlos, I think every coach in this business is continuously working towards making sure that they continue to have the opportunity to do their job. That's just the reality of this business. And so I've never ever looked at had long-term plans. It's nothing I've ever done in my coaching career. All I've ever thought about is doing the very best job I can that day and then moving forward. So, you know, I don't know if that answers your question or doesn't answer your question, but at the end of the day, for me, we're trying to become a better group on a daily basis here. And again, I know I've had success. I know what it takes. It takes steps in the right direction with as few steps in the wrong direction. It's not one giant leap or anything like that. It takes just a continual process of getting better and better and better, and as little steps in the wrong direction as possible. And it's we've got tons of work ahead of us here, and let's worry about being a better hockey team day 1, day 2, day 3 of next season, and continue to move this organization forward.
Just a follow-up is just not sure how much of when you met with Steve, how much of a situation it was where you had to present your case or not. But in the 6 years you've been the Wings coach, what have you most been proud of in that time?
You know, I haven't thought tons about that. I would say, you know, I'm proud of the fact that our guys, you know, we've had a tough couple of years here, and I think our guys have continued to not let frustration of the situation take away from our work to build as a group. And that's not an easy thing. And you trust me, we all have had our moments of frustration, coach, management, players, staff, fans. That's what happens. It's hard. This is not easy business. It's hard business. And I think as a group, we've been able to continue to even through those moments and through all the different difficult times and the difficult times we're going to continue to face, keep our focus on trying to get better and keep our focus on working towards a better tomorrow. And that part, I'm proud of our group.
The last question, Mike Stone, 97 London ticket.
Yeah, Jeff, I know you don't like to talk about yourself too much, but where in the last 6 years you could say, you know what, I've gotten a lot better than where I was when I first started? Is there something you can say, I learned a lot in the 6 years where I can, you know, I know I'm a better coach now than I was 6 years ago because of this?
You know, that's an interesting question, Stoney, and my wife would probably disagree. I don't like to talk about myself, but I would just say this. You know, I've gained tons of experience, and I think if you are willing to learn from your experiences, your successes and failures, no matter how big or how little they are, if you're willing to learn from you be better. And I know I'm a much better coach today than I was when I did the job 6 years ago, and I hope to be a better coach 6 years from now by continuing to learn. I think when you've kind of been through it and you've been through lots of different situations, you just get very comfortable in making decisions and moving forward. And you don't really worry about second guessing that happens at any level. And certainly in this league or other leagues that happens. And you make your decisions, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not good. And you learn from them and you move forward. And anybody that's in a decision-making position understands that. You can cripple yourself by overanalyzing poor decisions. You have to learn from it and you have to move on. And you know, I think you get scar tissue at times from it. And what I would say is that scar tissue is built up, and my skin's continue to get thicker. And so that to me is where probably the biggest growth is.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
That's it for us today. Thanks, everyone.